Doing mostly men only doing strippers and that, I became more of a blue comedian than a clean comic. I mean, clean comedy only got you £35 for 2.5-hour spots. A blue comedy got you £150. So what do you do when you've got a wife and kids, you know? But you had I mean, every time I got back to Fiesta, I had some story to tell. And Billy and them used to say to me, "What happened tonight?" "Oh, I was at Tanfield Lee. Concert chairman made me do an hour." I did an hour and I said, "Come for my money." It was only 50 quid. He said, "Who told you you were funny?" I said, "My mother likes me." He said, "Well, let your fucking mother pay you."
The Fiesta was very special, as this part of Britain is, the North East. You have supplied more comedians and comedians, I think, than anywhere else. From Liverpool, we do quite well in Liverpool. From Liverpool, we export comedians and prime ministers. But you've concentrated on comedians, right? Going back to Bobby Thompson and all over Jimmy James and Dave Morris, very underrated man. Dave Morris, a wonderful comedian. You had some Reg Thompson, yeah. You had some marvellous comedians here in the North East.
I've got a lovely story about, it was in the middle of the winter. It was very cold, windy, blowing a gale. And I'm sure most comedians got their routines from the man who was looking after the cars. He had a limp and he was like, "You can't park there, mate." He was a typical car park attendant. And I parked my car. "All right, Roy." I said, "Hi, George." Went in the Fiesta, stood at the bar. Pam served me a pint, so and so. Got talking. Peter Mitchell, comedian. Lord Crockett was there, another comedian. Billy Kelly was compere. And we're having a little laugh, jokes. Did you hear the one about, you know, in them days they were all Pat and Mick jokes, weren't they? They weren't like, it was all Pat and Mick jokes. And Julie Rogers was on. And she came on the stage, it was 9:30 she was on. "You by my side, that's how I see." You know, it was so quiet. You could hear the hairs on your neck growing, you know, and all the girls had the handkerchiefs out. "That's how I see." And there was double doors at the side of the stage. Suddenly they opened. And George, he must have leaned on the doors. He come in ass over tit. He fell on the floor. She stopped, the music stopped. And he went, sorry, carry on."
When you talk about the Fiesta and the people round here, people of the North East, you're talking about some very, very special people. I travel all over Great Britain, even and up to Scotland. I played. My ambition was to play every venue, so I played the one in the like north, the Shetlands. I played two. I went there. They couldn't believe it the first time. The Shetland. I went down to Bournemouth and Worthing and all the posh parts and East. And here in the North East, you have the most wonderful audiences, and that's what makes a performer. It's the audience. It's always a double act. There's you and me, and you're very, very important to me. Thank you.
The Fiesta can't be mentioned, of course, at least as far as men are concerned, without reference to the Fiesta Fawns. Some of them are still great mates and carry on the tradition of a glass of Vino Collapso.
I started a week after it opened in 1965. I started as a receptionist, stood in for a friend of mine who had the job, and then she got pregnant, so I rang Keith and said, you know, any chance you'll give me a job? So went along, gave me the interview. As I was walking up the steps, Bernie Winters was walking behind me and said hello, what was I doing there? So I was quite taken aback, you know, because he was quite famous then, and he was on Cabaret. And he said, "Oh, come and see me if you get the job." So Keith gave me the job, and that was it. And then I went on to be personal assistant to the general manager, which was Colin Hutchinson, and then manageress, and then on to Sheffield Fiesta as manageress.
Oh, the best job in the world. Time of my life. All those good 70s bands, good fun, getting paid for enjoying yourself. That was the good thing about it.
It was busy, but it was great fun, and it was a wonderful time to be young. especially when you go and you're seeing cabarets every night, comedians every night. It was just a lovely time to be around that scene because you don't have it anymore. People were a bit cheeky at times, but you just took it on the chin. But the doorman and everybody, the staff were fabulous. We were well looked after. Well looked after, all the staff were lovely.
Depending if you got a group of men in, and if they'd had a few, you know, they'd get a bit cheeky. I just used to kick them in the ankle.
The ankle?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. And they'd go, oh!
Oh, yes. Anybody that was anybody we met. Anybody that was anybody we had there. I mean, in the beginning, when I was a receptionist, we used to get people from France ringing, you know, because they wanted to come see Cliff Richard or somebody, because there was just nothing like that in London. Talk of the town, but they didn't have the acts like we had, and we always had Bernard Delfont and Lou Grades and all these people, the people that rang the Fiesta to get their acts in, you know. And Laurie Mansfield, who is now a big wig, always see him on the Royal Variety performance introducing the stars to the Queen. I mean, Laurie was always at the Fiesta, you know, getting his act in, so.
There was a few people used to do matinees, like the New Seekers and Alvin Stardust, and we used to borrow children off the neighbours and take them along, and had an absolutely wonderful time on the afternoon. And because we helped them out, Alvin was brilliant. He, at the end of the week that he was on, he sent us all a red rose, all the ladies, with a little card just to say thank you, which I thought was really, really nice, because you don't get big stars doing that these days.
At the end of the week, he'd make me sit down with him in the dressing room and get his box out with his decanter of gin and whiskey, and I had to sit and drink a straight whiskey, which was like, where? He goes, Sandra, come and have a drink with Tommy. I mean, he wouldn't come out into the Fiesta until he'd finished, and then he'd stay all night drinking till 8 in the morning. He didn't suffer fools, and he'd do his little tricks in the boardroom with us, you know, personal little tricks, funny tricks. But he was a fantastic magician, amazing. And he'd always be getting things out of the bag and out of his pockets, and he'd like to have a laugh. He likes to, I mean, whatever they say about him, he was just the most funniest man ever, and great person as well.
Oh yes, Cliff always rang me if he was at the Globe, and because he wanted to come for a meal, so I would organise him to come in the side door, and we'd put on a meal in the boardroom. And one day Olivia Newton-John was performing, so we all went in the boardroom. But he always looks after you. You know, he sent me the most beautiful vase of flowers. Always bought me, or sent his mum out to buy me Christian Dior perfume. This was both Stockton and Sheffield, so whenever he performed there, I always got a gift, you know, and sent me a little card from him and Kelly, the dog. And it was nice. Took my friend and I out to dinner on his mum's birthday, so it was lovely.
There was a cabaret on, I think he was only on for one night, and it was like a specialised act. And he brought a lion with him and a tiger, and they had the press conference on the Saturday afternoon, and I had to sit outside and give the lion a drink of milk, and then I had to take it across the crossing outside the Fiesta on a lead. I had to walk across the crossing by myself with the lion, sorry. And it was just hilarious because people just couldn't believe what they were seeing on Norton Road on Saturday afternoon.
Oh, I've got a story about Show Waddy Waddy. I was sent up to the dressing room to serve some drinks, and the lead singer was standing there like this, stark naked. And I walked in, and I just looked, and then I looked him up and down, and I said, from what I've heard, one hand would have done.
You couldn't let them see you were starstruck. Inside, I'm going, you know, I took my father and I took my nana to meet, I forget his name now, Norman Wisdom. And I had to say to them, look, I'm going to introduce you, but please don't be starstruck, just go, hello. And took my stepmother to meet Cliff, told her, be very cool, don't. And I felt really embarrassed because they would go, yes, okay, fine. You know, and I felt awful Because inside, yeah, I was starstruck, but you just didn't let them see that, you know.
And seeing people like the Beach Boys, and where could we go to see the Beach Boys now in this area? You'd have to go to a big venue and pay a fortune, wouldn't you? Stevie Wonder at Sheffield Fiesta, he was twice in one night, saw the show twice in one night, which was amazing.
Yes, Stevie Wonder, he was amazing. I mean, I just wish I'd had more photographs taken with more stars, because some of them you forget that we had, you know. Ray Charles, we had Ray Charles there. You know, you forget you've seen these people. Stevie Wonder was phenomenal. I mean, he was my idol anyway, and to meet him.
Oh, I would live every day again for the Fiesta days. Best time of my life.
Everybody knew us, and even now, people say to me, "Yeah, I know you used to be a Fiesta Fawn, didn't you?" And I thought, well, that was 40 years ago. You know, I've done a lot since then, but that's how they remember you.
Oh, time, that's the best job ever. You know, I mean, who would get up in the morning, go to work at 10 o'clock and probably come home at 10 o'clock the next morning and just live the life, you know. It was just amazing. You'd always bump into, if they weren't appearing at the Fiesta, they'd call in. It's like Tom Jones, Engelbert Humperdinck. Everybody knew the Fiesta and they'd come in for dinner. And you just brush shoulders with all these people, Gene Pitney, everybody.
Carol and Sandra couldn't pass up the chance to meet former Fiesta acts at the Old Opera House in York. It was a 60s revival show, and the memories were flowing.
Well, it's back in the 70s, we used to love going up there to Stockton, the Fiesta Club. We had a great week. The audience was fantastic. The atmosphere in the club was brilliant. And it was very classy backstage as well, which makes a change from nowadays. Really great time up there.
Well, it was one of the best clubs we used to work at, and all the cabaret clubs of all time. We had some fantastic times there, you know, great crowds, great staff, and great management there. Jim and Keith and Oliver and his wife, they were fantastic. Really, we used to enjoy doing it a lot. Great club.
Club Fiesta, yeah, I did many weeks there at the Fiesta, both Stockton and Sheffield. Great times, yeah.
Great memories, fantastic place, probably the best nightclub in the country as far as I was concerned. There was another great club down south, but the Fiesta was by far the best.
I think it was just ahead of its time. I mean, I remember Jim used to say to me that people used to come here to the Fiesta because for the men it was like being James Bond for the night, because you had to get dressed up with the suit, the tie and everything, and the girl or the girlfriend or the wife got dressed up with you. And of course when the casino was there, which was slightly before my time, it would have been like James Bond.
It was full week then, you remember, you know, it was 7 days a week at the clubs, and in between the clubland in England we'd go to America, Australia, go around the world, but it was still great. It was still great to come back to the Fiesta. Great atmosphere, it's brilliant, isn't it? It's a one-off there, it really was.
It was like that ultimate cabaret sort of thing where people could dine, and it was really well set out. Lighting was good, PA system was good, had a great band, and it was just well run and well done, you know, as opposed to the working men's club that were very good at the time, but the Fiestas was like the top notch, you know.
I say amongst all the big names, the big acts, big bands, and the Fiesta was synonymous with being one of the best clubs on the cabaret circuit, always.
Well, northeastern people to start with, the fantastic audiences, and of course the management, and were great. Staff were fantastic, made you feel incredibly welcome, made you feel important, and that, which is a big, because all artists are all ego trippers, so it's always a nice thing to feel important, yeah, without a doubt.
It's not like the theatres where if there's a support act on, most of the people are out in the bar, they don't come and watch the support act. In the Fiesta, everybody was in like at 9:30 for the first act, yeah. It was always good, very good, yeah. Great audiences.
I remember the digs as well, fantastic digs. The landlady used to make us sandwiches, so when we came back, you know, a bit worse for the weather, there'd always be something to eat there and a cup of tea. It's brilliant, she was great.
And a bad game of pool.
Oh yeah, he had a big pool table in a small room, and one of the cues was on about 18 inches long, so when you got to one side of the table, you had to pick the short 18-inch cue up to get a shot, and another end of the table, you had to open the window to get the 6-foot cue going. Brilliant.
With all that phenomenal success, did it not seem a little odd to be playing a little former theatre, former cinema in a quiet corner of Stockton-on-Tees?
Well, no, not really, because we didn't see it as that. We just saw it as the Stockton Fiesta. I mean, like you say, so many big stars and actors done the club like ourselves, and we just enjoyed it because the atmosphere was fantastic there. Great club, you know, brilliant.
Working with like people like Tommy Cooper, who brings back big memories as well. I remember when he went on stage, he had a microphone off stage, behind the scenes, and he also had his microphone on stage. So he'd tell a few jokes backstage before he even came on the main stage, and he'd have people in uproar before they even saw him.
They announced him, and they had the curtains were drawn, you know, and nothing happened. Like Tommy Cooper, and nothing happened, and all of a sudden, yeah. Of course, the crowd are laughing now. The crowd were laughing before he came on. He didn't come on for 5 minutes. The curtain was banging. He was banging into the curtain, and that was 5 minutes before he came on.
But when he went off, he also did the same thing in reverse. He'd go off backstage and start telling his jokes again, and it was brilliant. He just wouldn't go off. And one night, his backstage microphone didn't work, and he shouted me up to the dressing room afterwards and said, "Why did you turn the microphone off, Trevor?" I said, "Tommy, I didn't turn the microphone off." He said, "You did. You turned the microphone off." I said, "I didn't." And when we checked, the size of his feet was that big. He's obviously stood on the microphone cable and pulled the plug out the back, so that's why his microphone didn't work. Once I explained that, he says, "Have a drink." That was great.
Tommy liked to drink. More after the show. I can remember one time when he was sat in the dressing room with his dressing gown on, his door was open, I walked past and he said, "You would like a drink, Jeff?" And I said, "Oh, I might have one with you later, Tommy." And he had a crate of Newcastle Brown there, which he was pouring into a pint pot and topping it up with whiskey, and that was his little tipple, and you know, he was good. He was a good drinker.
But nothing, no matter how good, lasts forever, including the Fiesta. Bad times were on the way, and the Fiesta story would end in bankruptcy for Norton Entertainments in 1976. There were massive debts.
When the Fiesta eventually went down, I lost more than anyone, because apart from losing my job, my pension, I had to forfeit my pension to pay for the national insurance stamps for the month of June. It was outstanding. And I also had to, we borrowed 20,000 from the bank, and we each had to pay 5,000. So that took a lump out of my earnings. So I lost more than anyone. I lost my job, my pension, and my career when it closed down.
When the Fiesta first opened, of course, it was subsidised heavily by the casino. There was a huge casino at the back and at the top then. It used to make a lot of money. But when that went, then that source of revenue disappeared, and it got a little bit harder.
I could see the writing was on the wall with the caveats were going up, where we paid £1,000 a week. 5 or 6 years later, we were paying £5,000 and £6,000 for the same act. And they seemed to think, oh, because it went down well, the people would pay more. But a lot of people who have been to see him, say £2 to see someone like Gene Pitney, if the cover charge went to £3, saying, why should I pay £3? I've already seen him, you see, and that's the mentality. And of course, it's not only artists who put the prices through the roof, it was their agents and managers who wanted their bigger commissions. That they'd pull an artist from one agency and say, I'll get you £6,000 a week, and you're only getting 4, you see. So, because the agent would get more commission out of that, you see. But apart from that, the costs were going up in other ways. Everything was getting dearer, the rates, the tax, and it just was expensive.
There was a time when these sort of clubs started that the acts didn't get too